Hey now, cats, we're back again this week, and it's been a minute, man. We've been on a little hiatus, but the crowd has spoke, the people have spoken. Me, Balls from Elwood, and my ride or die, Mr. Wheels, Matt, and Esty. We are back. We are the Movie Snobs, and I don't know if you're tuning in for the first time or the nth time. What our show is about is I don't know, more of a questionable taste in film. And my compadre over here has a little more sophisticated palate.
With a
So I,
little more of the pinky in the air kind of shit, you
yeah,
know.
that kind of palate. And I subject him almost to in a mystery science theater way, almost to the most, horrible movies known to man, I guess you could say. And he tries to make me a little more sophisticated by turning me on to things that I would probably never give a chance had he not forced me to watch it. Wackiness ensues. I have a film. He has a film. We talk about it. And hey,
It really is the best concept for a show ever. You know, we really can go out of our way to try and intellectualize it, but it's like I give my best friend a movie, you give me a movie, and then and then we talk about it. It's beautiful.
it really is, man. So I'm gonna actually throw it to you. Do you want to start today, or do you want me to start today?
Yeah, I'll start with this one today because this is fun. And I'm excited. I'm excited that we're finally back doing this. I've been training this whole off season just to prepare myself for this new season of movie watching. I've been smoking as much pot and drinking as much as humanly possible.
I mean, that's definitely what most people do to prepare. So yeah, Wheels is getting back in shape with the movie watching. He's doing good, and it's all you, homie.
Now listen, I need it for this week because this time around, this is the fun one because it kind of goes into some stuff we were doing. But I finally got the chance to watch Lloyd Kaufman's Shakespeare don't forget the hashtag Shakespeare Shitstorm, which has been a recommendation from Balls to me for a while. I'm so excited I finally got the chance to see one of Lloyd's latest.
It
This
might
is
very, in fact, be his last Wheels.
It may, and I'm not gonna lie to you, I was getting I'm kind of jumping ahead to some of the notes I wrote at the end, but it very much gave those this is my last movie vibe. This is my I'm kind of walking away. Here's almost a summation of all the work I've done in the past. And this is my final. We'll get to that. But this was an interesting one. So the world of trauma is incredibly new to me. As those of you who've watched the show before, Paul showed me Poultrygeist, and it completely blew my mind to what movies could be. It was just so absolutely preposterous and upsetting even. And I keep coming back for more. Like I can't stop watching it. So by the time I finally get to this, I mean, what are we? We're in October of 23. By the time I finally gotten here, I'm super into this world. I'm really, really into kind of what this is. And yet you somehow make because I've seen what have I seen so far? I've seen a couple Toxic Avengers. I've
Hey, you've seen
seen
one and four.
I've seen 1 and 4. And I saw Tromeo and Juliet, which
It was a good companion, isn't it? Nice. I'm glad you've
it's
seen
a
that first because
very
this was a
good.
good companion piece
It is
to
such
that.
a good companion to this. It is amazing to me that Lloyd has not one really, really well made like Shakespeare satire, but he has 2 of them under his belt. I guess the only says so. Just to kind of explain to everybody what this movie is, Shakespeare Shitstorm is literally just The Tempest.
Yes.
It is just The Tempest. Now, I'm going to just let everyone know, don't make fun of me. I actually haven't read The Tempest. I've read Romeo and Juliet in school. We didn't read The Tempest, and I haven't read it. But I did spark note it because I was incredibly curious of how, because when I watched Romeo and Juliet, I mean, Lloyd stuck to it pretty well 1-to-1 to Romeo and Juliet, other than instead of the kids killing themselves at the end, they, I guess, committed incest, which might as well be the same thing as suicide. But I guess that's another conversation for another day.
That could be a whole nother episode, Wheels.
Yeah, that's a whole other episode. But for this, for the Tempest, just at least based on the Spark Notes, this seemed like an amazing, practically 1-to-1, because I'm sure William Shakespeare had, hot masturbating scenes, and people turning into pus-filled green monsters. I assume that's what the bard always intended.
That's what I remember reading.
But and that's and I like the fact that you're way more literate than I am. That you've hopefully also read the have you read the Tempest? Because I've never read.
I've read the Tempest back. I mean, I'm a 48-year-old asshole dude, so yeah, I've had plenty of time to catch up. So yeah, but they actually made us read that in high school.
Okay, so I'll ask you this question at the end when I get to it, but I kind of do want to talk. I want to talk about this movie because again, it's interesting because I'm watching something, and this is kind of around some other, but it was still somehow incredibly different from the other movies that I've seen. I don't even want to say like in style, but this was like a significantly more punchy movie. And I know I really haven't seen a lot of his movies. Like I've only seen like 4-ish now. But so far the ones I've seen, this was like an incredibly punchy movie where it was like punchline after punchline after punchline after punchline for the characters. The one that like immediately sticks out to me in my head is when he was talking to his daughter, and he had her on his lap, and he calls her his little PTSD princess. That will probably make its way in my everyday vernacular for a while. But the other thing that I really liked about this is it was more overtly political and more on the nose political than a lot of the other stuff I've seen, but it was done in a way that was so beautifully graceful, which I thought was interesting. One of my favorite things about this movie was the fact that it is one of the silly, Lloyd really loves the puckered butthole shot. Oh, yeah. I'm saying, just really, not only does he love it, he seems to be really good at capturing a puckered butthole shitting. There's Quentin Tarantino's trunk shot, there's Hitchcock's dolly zoom, and then there's Lloyd Kaufman's puckered butthole. And I think that should be taught to film students from now on.
And the funniest part is I know you're being honest.
I'm being so fucking honest. Like it's crazy how well he captures what is hopefully a prosthetic butthole, but so eloquently captures the essence of what I assume a puckered asshole would look like while shitting. And I seeing Poultrygeist, I thought to myself, wow, that was a good human asshole shitting. And now in Shakespeare's Shakestorm, I got to finally what a well-shot whale's anus would look like. And it only took roughly 10 minutes to get there. That was the other fascinating thing. They do tell you save your best stuff for last, and that was led with. So, which makes sense because then things got weirder and got more political, but it got more beautiful. Because one of the most fascinating things about me is there was like a breakdown where you're explaining the Prospero character, and in the midst of doing that, there's like a full-on explanation for what's actually causing the opioid crisis, right? Like that was one of the coolest things that I've seen, where it goes from this like just absolute absurdity to, we're going to take a step back and we're going to talk about like profiteering from the pharmacy industry and how they're the ones actively promoting this opioid crisis. almost in the way that we used to yell at old drug dealers on the street for trying to get people hooked and then wanting to keep them on. And you know, I won't, because we could turn this into a policy discussion of, we're not going to do that. But I do want to say, like, I was so impressed with how Lloyd managed to turn this into an actual explanation for what causes the opioid. And I also really liked the scenes where he was showing like what economic downturn looks like in a city, but he was doing it through like the crack market. And instead of it being like essentially the housing market collapsing, it was the crack market collapsing, which I think is a really fun way to get kids to understand the intricacies of like microeconomics, where you could just explain it through crack and the crack epidemic. I don't know. It was an amazing movie. Oh, and yeah, before I kind of go into like the final part of it, one of the other things I liked about this, and maybe it's because I'm a prude, so like to me the sex stuff is always a lot. Whenever I'm watching like these movies and it's like full on, you know, like practically, as they say in Always Sunny, like full penetration, it makes me incredibly uncomfortable. But maybe I'm a prude, and that's who I am. But I actually weirdly like the way that he handled the sexual scenes in this movie. It seemed like the most measured way, presumably, that he's ever handled this. And I thought it was absolutely hilarious, juxtaposing what was the final romantic scenes between
Yeah.
Miranda and the son, juxtaposing those scenes in passionate love, like actual passionate lovemaking, to like the horrific transformation of the party goers during the event. That shit was hilarious. I thought that was really funny. And I like the way that this was handled. I think it was an incredibly graceful handling of sort of these modern absurdities that we have going on around us. These everything from you know, being addicted to drugs, like the opioids epidemic, to the economic disparities, to race relations, to I mean, again, like it was funny. The social justice warriors were like, they were the bad guys through this, and they were where they kept calling them like the snowflakes. And I'm not gonna lie to you, when I first saw that and saw those characters, I literally put my hand on my face. I was like, oh fuck, here we go. Like I was like, this is gonna be so ridiculous. But it was handled in such a way that didn't just dive into the stereotypes, that didn't just fully dive into it didn't just accept the stereotype as all it was. I think it was really cool how Lloyd went out of his way to almost explain this through, like, no, these things are good. It's just that these people doing it, they're doing it pretty much out of entitlement, or to be seen, or to be noticed. Like, they're not doing what's right because it's what's right. They're doing it because it's like almost a fad. And I got that a lot through the scene of those two girls when they were covered in shit, talking to the black girl, which I think was supposed to be, oh yeah, the one that Prospero literally bought, like, because when she was like, oh yeah, and he bought me, oh yeah, and he bought me, go here again, slanky. That shit was ridiculous. But I think it was awesome, because then it ultimately ends with him killing, him killing the snowflakes with perspective. I think was one of the silliest ways to handle it. And I think that was cool. Like, I don't know, it was interesting. It was a really graceful handling by somebody in like their late 70s. I think he's like in his deep 70s, like, which I'm incredibly impressed with. Most people who are that old and trying to critique and point out the absurdities in modern culture, they have a really hard time hitting what the actual problem is. And I think he saw like this idea that yeah, we're a weird generation who like we actually want to do what's right, but we're too focused on the superficial. Like we see the superficial, and the superficial shit is easy. Like, but it can lead to a person not understanding what it means and assuming that everything's off limits. And kind of back to this to the earlier point that we were bringing up that this might be his last movie. Um, I think using this story in The Tempest was an amazing vehicle, not only to sum up an entire body of work, but to literally say to the audience one final time, like, listen, we're not perfect, but we're trying. And to me, I think that is one of the coolest messages. Now, I have a question for you about the end,
Mm-hmm.
because I know Lloyd took some liberties with the end of Romeo and Juliet.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my initial registering of the end, um, and I get it, the story is everything works out, everyone's left happy, Prospero does what's right and releases everybody. But what I'm wondering is was Prospero, was the main character, did he wind up trapped in the same sort of bullshit that he hated the snowflakes for at the end of the movie? Because I keep thinking about the line where he does his transformation and his uh
Which is that's just
uh
a great scene.
what was, oh my god, what was appropriate, what was the name of the drug? He was the appropriations drug, or appropriato or something. I can't remember what the
Oh,
fucking name.
was oh man, I know that
Uh,
the thing that
what,
transformed them was Tempest.
but then he took the drug and it gave him the brain of a
Yeah,
Jew,
the
the
brain of
heart
a
of a
Jew,
black.
the
Yeah.
penis of a black man.
But I think what was really fun, like the reason I'm saying that is when they start cheering him on and saying, oh, you're so brave, you're so brave. He's essentially being swarmed like he's being eaten alive, going, don't put me on a pedestal, don't put me on a pedestal, don't put me on a pedestal. And then the next scenes are him on a pedestal. It's him as a rock star on
Yeah, I
magazines,
mean
on
it's
Oprah.
a little over exaggerated, but it is sort of close. Like what you're saying is kind of closer to it's more of a tragedy like, at the end.
Yeah, and then I
And
guess
it's
that's
weird
actually.
because he does become almost everything that he kind of stood against, but in the same sense, it's almost kind of hopeful. And like the end of the original was not like that at all. It's
Well,
just
because he's asked, because
tragedy.
I looked it up and I was curious, and I guess Prospero in the original Tempest is asking to be released from the audience. I was reading some lines from it. He was pretty much asking
Yeah, he's almost
like
become, like you said,
forgiveness.
captive to like what he stood against. I mean,
And
that's
that's
what I read.
what, like, and I guess that's how I started to register, because it wasn't just Prospero. It felt like Lloyd as an actual artist talking to the audience, asking to be released from this, to forgive me, release me, but he's also being propped up, and him doing, like, him delivering these lines with these dead eyes. It just gave me that pause of, you know, is it is it so is this thing a vicious cycle of people doing what's right to be seen, or doing what's right to for fame, or, and those are things that I always wonder about, and those are things that I am incredibly fearful of as an advocate. Those are things that you're always worried about. But that was sort of my, like, that was the only thing about the ending that I am genuinely wondering about, is like, is it a tragedy or did things work out? Because it feels like he could have wound up in the similar position of you know sort of the same position as the people he didn't like, or he genuinely did make change to this world, and he just has to put up with the fame and the being noticed that kind of goes along with it. So,
I feel
but
in
I
the
really
original.
like I really 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 like this movie. I was it definitely held me throughout. Funny as fuck, like really 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 funny, and just absolutely ridiculous. I will never get over this fucking puckered butthole shot.
I mean, I've said this 100 times. I know, and it's funny because I do shill trauma like car insurance, like you had said. I've been doing it since I was a kid. And here's the thing I like so much about it. I want to say this real quickly because I want to spend some time on your movie because I want to make sure we have equal time. But
Oh, I'm excited.
the thing that I always liked about them is it's almost like with good music. Any good music, despite the era, always is a reflective mirror to society and the things that's going on, and that's so much what connects. And it just goes to show you that genre doesn't mean anything, but if you make that connection, and the thing I like about them is they always do that crazy, sometimes gross out, sometimes shock thing.
Yeah.
But to most people, that's face value. But in all honesty, most the whole point is, and you're a member of the cool kids club now, buddy, because like you get it. And the whole purpose is there's always that underlying thing that you're supposed to get. And some people just see it as trash cinema and like B movie zaniness and stuff, but they're missing the point entirely. It's always been deeper than that, and that's the thing that I've always admired about him. But I'm really glad you dug it, dude. I knew you would get it. I knew you would get all that. In fact, I didn't expect your review to be this dramatic. Like I'm actually
I can make even the weirdest movie sound pretentious. That is one of my
like I don't think there's a point that you didn't hit. Like I mean, yeah, you got it like from front to back, and like it blows me away, and I'm proud. I mean, I want to hurry up and get through your thing so we have time so you can tell the story.
Oh yeah, because there is more to that. Yeah, there is more to that.
There's way more. We might have to get to that another time, but which I almost feel like this would be the time to do it. So let me get to yours real fast, and hopefully we'll have time at the end. We can tell your story real fast because I have the great value version of Zoom, so we got to get going. So my movie that Wheels presented to me was, I believe, was it from the 70s, Wheels? Am I correct?
Yes, the Lane May classic.
It was a movie called Mikey and Nicky, and I'm gonna blow your mind, dude. I think this movie is, in fact, the best film you've ever made me watch.
Yeah, fuck yeah, dude.
Dude, I fucking loved it. Like, I have to say, dude, I was completely engaged from start to finish. I didn't want to stop watching it, and I have problems like shutting things off and start again. I have OCD, as you can tell if you just know me for 5 seconds. I have OCD real bad, so I can't shut shit off. I can't start again. I had to watch it in where I was under those conditions where I had to stop it and start it, and I couldn't stop it, dude. Like I was so invested, I was so engaged. You know what I love so much about this film, and I could tell you, and I was the whole time I'm watching this, I'm like, this is why I love this. This is one of my main complaints. This is why I'm a movie snob. One of my main complaints with fucking cinema nowadays, and probably for the past few, I'm gonna go so far as say decades, is one thing that they did well and they perfected back there that isn't happening anymore is people don't know how to write and develop and flesh out and develop characters. Like they don't take the time. This is, in fact, more so about toxic friendship and a character study of not so much, not so much the gangster element, not so much the cop element, not so much anything. It's a character study between two friends with a toxic relationship that just completely goes off the rails. And I love that fucking from the very beginning to the very end. You see the very beginning and you just see the whole thing expertly fucking undo and go off the rails and just fucking and like I love it, dude. The fucking writing is great. The look is great. I love movies from that era to begin with. The actor, fucking Cassavetes, fucking Falk, amazing. I can't tell you one bad thing about this film. I fucking loved it from start to finish. I would own it. Like, and I'll be honest with you, man. I'm gonna blow your mind. I fucking loved it. Like, I can't say enough good shit about it. And it stuck with me too. Like, there are so many different things and elements, and I'm still thinking about it because, like, I've, in some weird way. And here's another thing that I thought was interesting, and I was actually talking about with my wife, Xtina. From that era, it showed you, like, a lot of people say nowadays, like, we haven't really come that far, but you see all the fucked up shit that was socially acceptable from that era, and then you compare it to today, and it makes you kind of refresh because we really kind of have, man. Because I mean, they're doing some real misogynistic shit in that movie.
How about that fucking sex scene? How about that? How uncut? So you've shown me movies, Trauma, and other. You've shown me movies that have like graphic sex scenes, right?
Yeah,
Isn't
dude,
it the most
I
fucking
guarantee that
uncomfortable
is
sex
more
scene you've ever
disturbing than
seen?
anything I've ever showed you. Dude, I'm so jaded from seeing so much. Nothing moves my needle. That actually bothered me. Like I mean,
Peter Falk just sitting in the bathroom, just cast by a little bit of light, just smoking a cigar while like John Cassavetes is essentially raping a woman.
yeah,
It, for all intents and purposes, that like it was not really that consensual at all.
no, that's what I'm saying, man. Like,
And remember, the person who made, for those of you who were like, rape. No, like this was made by Elaine May. Like she's a fucking killer. Like, so just keep that in mind.
so much happened in this film. Like they're beating women, they're fucking raping women, they're doing so much misogyny. Like none of that shit would fly today. I don't care in a B movie or otherwise. Like I haven't been. I think the last time you made me watch something that actually disturbed me like that was fucking Come and See, and that was for
Yeah.
a completely different reason. But yeah, dude, I mean, I thought that was great. But I mean, I'm a sucker for character study, and I'm a sucker for watching any sort of like.
Quite possibly one of the best character movies ever. Like
Yeah,
when
I
it
would.
comes
I
to
would. I would
characters
say
and character
watching
development.
watching two characters just completely fall apart and go off the rails. I'm a sucker for every time. Like, I mean, to see friendships just completely disintegrate because and a lot of that movie kind of like connected and hit home with me because I've been through relationships like that where I always kind of felt like I was the one keeping everything together. And like, people didn't realize that they were actually being so toxic to me, which I still probably think they don't. But, yeah, dude, it really hit home. It really stuck with me. I'm probably going to think about it for a long time after the fact. I loved it, man. Kudos. I mean, I
It's
can't.
one you're gonna want to watch. It's so like you know how I am when it comes to movies where I'm like sometimes I'll watch movies, you know how I'll say to you, like, I will never watch that movie ever again, but it'll
Yeah,
always
yeah, which I understand. There is certain things where you're like, once is enough. So
this is one that I've watched a few, like I can't say that I've watched it a shit ton, but it's one I'm pretty much at watching it at least once a year, twice a year. And I first watched it like, I don't know, like 3 years. So I've seen it like 3 or 4 or 5 times.
well, it's funny you
So
say that because since I've watched it, I've actually thought about watching it again. And like, there's so many different reasons why.
it's funny. It's the way that they interact in like the
I
show.
was just gonna say that to watch their delivery and their, their react and act to each other is just perfection. Like, I mean,
Well, Peter Falk and John Cassavetes had like in real life, those guys were best friends.
no,
Like
that makes sense then. I
in
mean,
actual real, so like the story behind this movie is actually like fascinating. Like one, the story's based on Elaine May's brother was mobbed up, and this was a story he told her. It was I don't think her brother lived the situation, but I think he told her the story of like, oh yeah, get this, one guy had to kill his best friend, and then this is where that came from. Now I wanted to show you a John Cassavetes movie before I showed you this, but I didn't. I ended up showing you this first, but it doesn't change what I'm about to say. Elaine May, when she wrote and directed, she pretty much set out to make a John Cassavetes type movie with this movie, and then wound up with Cassavetes, and then bringing in Peter Falk, and then she wrote and directed, and then wound up making seriously wound up making a Cassavetes movie better than Cassavetes could ever make, which I even think he would probably fucking admit that if he was alive. I don't think anyone ever talked to him about it, but like that shit was awesome. But then like he brings in Peter Falk, and now you have two guys who are real life best friends acting across from each other, and then that's what's created, and that's what comes out of it. Like, and that's I don't know, that's like one of the best ways to make a movie. And you can actually feel. You can feel like, isn't that crazy? Like, movies like what, like an hour and a half, hour 45, barely. Like,
yeah, it's like 142, I think.
and in that time, you literally get an entire friendship.
That's
Like,
what I'm saying, dude. From
it
the start
all
to the end, you get everything. And I have to say, any movie with William Hickey, who That movie was in the 70s. He still looked 480 fucking years old. So like that blew me away. And any movie with fucking Ned Beatty as a contract
Big
killer,
Beatty of the
fucking pimp, dude. Holy shit. It doesn't get better than that. I'm like,
he's just driving around pissed off. Well, the whole movie just he's motherfucker. I just want to go
dude,
home
I'm
and
like,
get a
Ned Beatty's really a contract killer. This movie's the fucking awesome, the best already just for that alone. Like, but
So I know we're running out of time, but I want to talk to you about. I think that movie, the creation of tension in that movie that Elaine May pulls off is on a level of Hitchcock.
it is, dude, because it
Without
has that slow level burn to where it just builds on top of itself and on top of itself. And on
remember
top
the
of itself.
diner scene in the beat, like so they, which first of all, like when we talk about love, like Peter Falk getting his boy out of bed and getting him out of the, this depressive fit. Let me get, he's putting the Tums in his mouth and chew, you son of a bitch. Like, I feel like my fucking like aunts or grandmas have said shit like that to me, like trying to get me to take my medicine. But like the fucking scene, like I don't know how a person could get to the scene where they're in the diner and Peter Falk is sitting there looking at the clock, looking at the phone, looking at Cassavetes, looking at the door. And I don't know how you don't almost have a heart attack watching that scene. And
Oh,
feel
dude, it's
and
yeah,
one
it's
of the most
definitely
beautiful things
Hitchcockian suspense. I mean,
is
not only
I
that,
think
it's great because you never can fully fucking peg it down to the very end. Because like just when you sort of think you have it figured out, it completely fucking turn. I mean, talk about red herring after red herring, dude. Like it's exhausting. Like it's exhausting in the best way ever. So I mean,
the graveyard scene with them talking about death and
yeah,
life and their childhood, like, oh my god, dude. It yeah, that I'm so happy. That makes me so happy to hear.
that film is almost like to me like the whole reason I wanted to do this with you because like I knew great things like this was going to have come out of it, and it's going to make me a broader of a person, and like I mean I can't even imagine not even like seeing this film and having that in my my artillery
So I
now.
gotta ask you, would you consider this a mob movie?
More no than yes, but I mean again
That's
you can't
okay. See, isn't
really.
the hardest question to answer?
It really is because, like, I mean, does it have characters that are directly, integrated into it? Sure, but
No,
that's
no,
not
no.
the focus. Like,
It's because, like, sure, the whole problem that these characters are going through are mob related because of their involvement with the mob. But it's not really a mob
yeah,
movie.
it's all kind of takes a back burner immediately. So, I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, I can't say enough stuff about it, dude. I honestly feel it's the best thing you've made me watch, and I enjoy immensely. Like and I've enjoyed most of the things you've recommended me. I have to say, there's a
And
couple I'm like meh, but most of the things I'm pretty happy that I've seen because like I mean again against my better judgment, I would have never thought I would have liked most of this stuff, and you were right, man. So like this is what's so great about us sharing interest, and this is why I love doing this show with you because
yeah, Rodner, when it comes to taking in art, and this is just good practice, not just for film, but for like music and for like actual like art, painting or whatever, spoken word, poetry, comedy. It doesn't matter. You should be expanding what you're taking in to every single corner, and you should even be seeking out stuff where you would eat. Like, if you think to yourself, yeah, I don't know if that's my cup of tea, you should just sit and watch it or take it in just because, like, especially if it's something that's like you can get your hands on for free or for like super duper cheap, that's not going to break you. Take it in, because honestly, even if you don't like the whole of something, there's always little elements that will stick in your brain, and they could make you, they could help you in life at some point, or give you perspective on something that you never would have had before. And like I learned from Shakespeare's Shitstorm, that perspective is good for you, but I guess it could also kill you. So, keep that in mind.
Well, I just actually got my safe spatial refilled, so I think I'm going to be okay.
These were two good movies to put back to back. These were,
You know what, dude? We always kind of pick like the most opposite things, but and as we talk, they almost end up being somehow
they're handling pretty much all ends of the spectrum. These interpersonal relationships. I mean, Jesus, even Shakespeare's Shitstorm was like these interpersonal relationships. This idea, well, because Shitstorm was the Tempest, but these ideas of like justice to injustice and get what does somebody deserve for what they've done wrong, and how far is too far, who's responsible, this idea of justifying things. Like, those are themes that are incredibly they're out there in both of these movies, which I think is fascinating because they're so fucking different.
Yeah, I didn't realize like until after I'd watched this film how directly kind of related in tone and context they are. So that it's kind of fascinating. We always kind of accidentally end up doing this somehow. It's not planned at all, but I got to tell you, buddy, we're gonna definitely gonna have to get to your story next time because we have like 2 minutes left. So
That was good. I'm glad we're back. We're back for more. We're back for vengeance. And damn it, we're gonna watch some movies.
I know you guys missed this because I've had people since we took a hiatus bugging the shit out of me all the time. What happened to Movie Snobz, man? When you guys coming back, man? So people must love us, people must miss us, and goddamn it, Wheels, I'm so happy that we started this again because I always have such a good time doing it with you, and I have a good time talking about movies too. So I mean,
I love you, Balls.
I love you too, man. Until next time, I'm Balls. This is my ride or die, Mr. Matt Wheels and Esty, and we are the Movie Snobs, and we will see you next time. Which Wheels has a very interesting pick that I gave him, but you're gonna have to tune in and see what it is, and I have an interesting one as well. So I think we're gonna be back in what's is it 2 weeks or 4 weeks?
I don't know.
Whatever.
We'll be back. We'll be back sooner rather than later.
Subscribe, motherfuckers. Then you won't have to worry about it. It'll just pop right up, and there it is. So I love you, homie. You have a great night. Always
Love
a
you
pleasure
guys.
to talk to you, Mr. Wheels. I love you.